Okay, so finally we are moving on to gross negligence manslaughter, the other type of manslaughter you can be charged with if you're not found guilty of murder but you still killed someone. So there are 5 parts to this, but it's technically only in 4 tests. So, the first test is duty of care. It was outlined in the case of Adamaco that the ordinary principles of civil negligence should apply. This means we can look at the Caparo test to find out if the defendant owes a duty of care. Now, if you remember back, the Caparo test has 3 parts to it. The first is foreseeable, so is it foreseeable the defendant's actions would lead to that? And the case for that is Kent versus Griffiths. The second is proximity, how close was the defendant and the victim. This was shown in Hill versus the Chief Constable of South Yorkshire Police. And the third part to it is the fair, just and reasonable test, which was outlined in Alcock versus CC. The next bit is where it gets a little bit confusing, as there are 2 tests but they're both under test 2. So test 2A is having found out that, established that he has that duty, did he breach that duty? And we must look at 4 things for that. The first is the magnitude of likely harm with Bolton versus Stone. The second is how serious was that harm with Paris versus Stepney. The third is the cost and practicality with Latimer versus AEC. And the fourth and final one is benefits of risk with Watt versus Hertfordshire County Council. Now part 2B is the risk of death. And the case you use to see if there was a risk of death is R versus Misra. And that is both test 2A and 2B there. Next we move on to the third test, which is the cause of death. And once again, as with all of them so far, the usual rules of causation apply here. So factual with White, legal, intervening act, thin skull, the usual as we've covered before. I'll leave all the cases on the screen once again if you still need them. And the final test, part 4, is the mens rea, and we get this from the case of R versus Bateman, and you need to be able to prove that the defendant was grossly negligent. Bateman described it as, it was quoted in Bateman as showing such disregard for life and safety of others as to amount to a crime. And that concludes all of our serious crimes. Next we shall be moving on to the defences, I believe, and then we'll go over the criticism evaluations. Thank you for watching.